this still seems to be a problem with people understanding the proper workflow. Hopefully this video, again, I will attempt to try to clarify. Whenever you start an After Effects project, one of the very first things you must do is you must create a new folder. So file, new folder, create your master folder. You get to label this folder. According to what I've been specifying, it's BRTF1265, which is your course code, followed by the name of the project. So if it's project 4 or assignment 1, this is where you'd put that name, then followed by, your name, whoever's handing that assignment in. That way I know whose stuff I'm marking. So within this folder, I have to go in here now and have to create subfolders. So once I open this folder, I've got it selected, I'm going to go File, New Folder. And I'm actually going to create 4 folders. And right now they're just going to be untitled folders, and that's fine. Because the next thing I want to do now is I want to go and name these folders. So the first one is going to be called Assets. Okay? Now, Assets is a folder that's going to contain all the media files that you're planning on using. And I'll put them in here first before I even open up After Effects, because this is where I want to import to create the links to these files. The next folder, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it End Project Folder. That's the folder that's going to contain multiple AEP files. AEP files are After Effects project files. These are basically the heart of your After Effects projects. They're basically a bunch of computer instructions. Unto themselves, they don't do anything. You can't bring them into any piece of software because no other piece of software will understand anything of what they mean. They are basically a file that is instructional to this piece of software called After Effects. The next folder is going to be called Finished Project. The Finished Project folder is a folder that is going to contain the very absolute final version of the AEP file. This will be after you've done everything you wanted to that project, all the commands you've given it in After Effects. That is the final version. It goes in here. When I go into this folder, I will see one and only one AEP file, and it should be the absolute finished version. When I double click on that, all the links should be correct within the workflow, and your project opens up. Everything's there. Your media is there. What I'm finding with some of you is that none of that's working because you're not preserving the media links, okay? So I'll get back to that in a second. Let's go to the last folder. The last folder is going to be called Sample Movie. Sample Movie, because basically my AEP file has to be rendered into a format that other pieces of software can recognize. For example, your NLE, your nonlinear editing software. It doesn't know what to do with an AEP file, so I need to render it out into some format, a movie file, QuickTime file, whatever. And I had to make sure the frame rate matches a usable video frame rate, which is another issue that people are having, and I'll address that again in another video, but I try not to make 2-hour-long videos here because I know you're not going to watch them all. So this is the proper workflow. This is what I expect to see. So for example, before I even start a project, what I am going to do is I'm going to go and get the files. Okay, so this is an example of project 4. So I've given you a bunch of files, and what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to take all those files, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy those files, and I'm going to put them inside this assets folder. So I double clicked on it, I paste. So now inside this assets folder, you can see how that workflow works. Okay, so I haven't even opened After Effects yet. I don't want to open After Effects until I've done this, okay? Because then what I have to do is I have to create links, okay? So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna quickly fire up After Effects. I'm going to do Command-Option-Shift, which I've been recommending you do simply because it fires up After Effects and default settings preference on the system. So After Effects is now opening, okay? I've got my master folder created. I've got my assets embedded in those folders. This is now where I make the critical decisions of what and how I want to use from those folders. So again, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set it up in standard, which is standard workflow. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish my AEP file. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to create an AEP file, After Effects project file. So you can see it, the name is right there. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it L4 if this is project 4, which I've indicated it is. And then I'm going to put a small v and a 1. And then I'm going to navigate to my desktop and I'm going to make sure I'm sending it to the right folder. Okay, and that's another issue that maybe is confounding some people. So there is my master folder, clearly labeled. Again, I'm going to send it to end project because that's where it's got to go. So now what I've done is I've created an AEP file. I've put it in that folder. Also, while I'm at it, I'm going to go up here, After Effects, Preferences, Autosave, and I'm going to set my autosave vault so that it's backing up my project. By default, it's every 20 minutes, but that's way too much time. So I'm going to set it to 5 minutes. Autosave location, because I saved my first project file, that AEP file, into that end project file, it's already set to next to project, which means it's going to go in that folder, which is exactly what I want it to do. So I'm going to click OK. Now, initially, I'll hide After Effects, and I'll go back to your workflow folder and open it up so that you can, basically see what's going on in there. So there's my assets folder. There's my end project file. So basically, that is where that's saved. Once 5 minutes elapses, an autosave vault will appear that will have these versions saved in here as well. So what I'm doing basically is I'm creating this series of AEP files that are going to basically indicate my project. And every time I make any changes, I go File, Save As, and I would go in here and I would go L4, and I'd call this one now version 2, and I'd make sure it's going into my end project folder. And again, I want to make sure I navigate to my desktop and make sure it is absolutely going into the right folder. So there it is there, end project, and I'll go save. And again, you just have to keep doing this constantly saving versions of these things. Now, creating the links. I'm going to click on that project panel. I can double click on it, and it basically gives me the import file dialog. Right now, it's going to go to whatever the last folder was I had selected, which is end project, which is not what I want. So I'll go back to my desktop, and I'll find my master folder, and there's my master folder. And what I'll do is I'll go to my assets folder. And what I'm going to do basically is, because these are all the same type of files, they're just footage, they're all flat images. I'm just select them all, and I'm going to hit open, and that's going to import all those files. So now that they're in this project panel, I want again to show you the importance of what's going on here. I'm going to hit the tilde key, which is that squiggly line key on the Mac keyboard, and you can see right here it says file path. You can see all these file paths, all these various files, they're all being linked to my master folder. You can see the name of my master folder right in here, okay? The problem is if I rename that master folder, then all these links are no good. And that's why your projects are completely offline. So when I go to open up your AEP file, nothing opens up because all these links have been trashed. So it's very important for you to understand the reasons why we have to follow the workflow. I hope that explains it.